Welcome, everybody. This is going to be the Shit Take, and today we're going to be talking about nostalgia and pop culture. We're going to be talking about some of the things that we think work, some of the things that we think do not work. Mostly going to be movies. We're going to cover video games, kind of fashion, toys, whatnot. And I'm Stellaby. This is my partner.
Or for the win here. How's y'all doing? Yeah, I think we've just this wave, this nostalgia wave has been crashing for a good while, like at least within like the last 5 years, and it really doesn't seem to be showing any signs of slowing down. So in this episode, we're really just gonna like cover the points that we really see as in like ones that have been hit the hardest by that sort of trend. Then just discuss, like you said, what we really think works for the trend, and maybe what doesn't, and flat out is just like, like if you're there, you're there. Like,
Yeah, I personally, I don't really like the nostalgia wave that we're currently riding. I think it's mostly due to a lack of creativity, and that's kind of depressing. Whenever our people who are being paid, tons and tons of money to write, and the things that they're writing are basically just remakes.
absolutely. And you hear that word being tossed around a lot is like, oh, it's an adaptation of this, is an adaptation of that. And whenever you have that source material and it's right in front of you, this thing that already exists, whether it's it's a video game, it's music, it's movie, it's fashion, like it's something that's already there. Like these people, essentially, the writers, the creators, they're like, oh, how can I cut and paste this, put my own flair on it, and then either try and fail at passing it as something completely original,
Yeah,
or you have to like slap that nostalgia banner on it and say, hey, like maybe you couldn't get this 10, 20 years ago, maybe this is something growing up that you noticed the other people weren't talking about, but now you can present it in this whole new light because now it's like a product of your own time. And
yeah,
not really, like you're still like relying on something like that. It's like, hey, there's not going to be another where's the beef, you know what I mean? Like that's a slogan that trademarked the 80s. So it's like, that's not to say that certain slang and catchphrases don't come around, but it's usually something for the time.
yeah. First on that list is we're talking about Dawn of the Dead and how it was just such an amazing movie.
Romero classic. What what more can you say about something that literally defined the genre of zombie film
Yeah,
twice?
I remember
Like,
the day it came out. My cousin, I was actually underage at the time. My cousin,
it was rated R.
yeah, I spent the night with him, and me and my brother actually spent the night with him. And in the morning, I was supposed to go to school. I was in I think I was in middle school at the time, um, and completely skipped that and just went straight to see the movie because we were actually really hyped for it. Right, it looked awesome, and I don't regret it at all. You know. It was a
Yeah, and
fantastic movie, and there wasn't like a ton of big names in the movie, so it didn't suffer from like an overcasting kind of thing, and you weren't like hanging on any one person's performance. It was solid across the board, and everybody had an equal responsibility, and yeah, I think it worked really well.
see, that's something that we've touched on before. Like, whenever you have like an A-list blockbuster, casting dollars up the wazoo, like if you're having too many big names in a movie, there are those times where it can suffer because not everybody gets that that sort of screen time that you think that they will warrant, or man, it's just like
Yeah,
there's too much stuff here to follow. But whenever you put somebody in the lens of a horror movie, specifically a zombie movie, you don't really run that risk because either A, gonna die immediately because they always have to have that giant, like, oh, all these people died like from the beginning, that's why there's so many zombies, or have those moments in the movie you're saying, well, it's probably not gonna end with this whole cast of 15 surviving to the end. So
yeah,
they basically got a number on their head. Who knows how many scenes they'll survive. And yeah,
yeah, and that was to me, like, that was a really great part was, yeah, it had Ving Rhames. He was definitely the biggest name at the time. It had Ty Burrell, But of
Yeah,
course, you know, this
but
is all pre-Modern Family. So I
Modern
mean,
Family, exactly.
yeah.
He
Um,
wasn't Phil Duffy quite yet.
so like you said, you don't know who's going to be dying in that movie, and I made for good surprises. But you know,
Yeah.
if you have like George Clooney starring in a damn vampire movie, he's either the main vampire or he's the
Or he's
human
the
that's going to live the entire way through. You know. So
exactly.
I think that was one of the best parts about Dawn
Yeah.
of the Dead.
And, not to knock From Dusk Till Dawn, but it was very obvious from the beginning of that movie that not gonna kill off Clooney.
Of
Not
course, yeah.
it's just yeah. Just like I'm pretty sure that was like Clooney coming off of like ER too, or maybe even just going into it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Dawn of the Dead
uh,
worked. You're gonna
absolutely.
realize a lot of the examples we have here are I guess horror genre, and I think that the reason why um, we're talking about this beforehand is because I think the horror genre can benefit the most um, on a lot of their old movies being remade, and I think that's mostly because you know CGI and special effects at the time, some of them just don't hold up, and something like with Dawn of the Dead, where basically turning zombies into something completely different. I
Yeah.
think that's why it worked. You know, like you were able to get away with that because you know you don't have these slow moving zombies anymore. You have a lot better special effects. You can even CGI if you want to. So
Yeah, and see that's such a good point because whenever you take that practical effects, you're sitting, for how many hours in the chair making it look like a zombie versus, like these genetic, bioorganisms here, like, with
yeah,
limbs and tendrils and they're crawling on all fours. So obviously the practical effects is going to work a lot better in
yeah,
Limelight where you have that slow moving zombie, like they're trudging along. But whenever you have a zombie that's suddenly speaking to you or climbing up walls and just showing this signs of intelligence, then it might benefit a little bit more to make them look more monster-esque,
yeah,
especially from something from 2004. Like the effects, like you said, their zombies are running, they're chasing those people down. So it's like you don't have that sort of, oh, I can outwit them by just staying a couple steps ahead. You're like,
and it was hordes,
yeah,
like hordes of zombies, and I think that's I don't know, like I remember watching you know a lot of movies in my lifetime, but that was really the first one where I got that sense of urgency because you're now dealing with a horde. And
mhm,
in movies before that, I didn't really like feel that from the slow moving. You know, if it's a horde of zombies moving very slowly, like you know, like with Shaun of the Dead, you know, it's not really the same thing. But when they're chasing you, you get that sense of
exactly.
urgency, and you know, I think the movie sticks with you a little bit harder because, um, you know, what would you do in that situation? You just have one
No,
option, and it's to
yeah,
run.
absolutely. It's like, yeah, you have a slow moving horde, and they're taking a bite out of one guy. Usually, it's like all of them are gonna clamber over that one body. But when you have like a horde running, it's like, oh, he's got that guy. I'm gonna go after this guy.
Mm-hmm.
They're it's like seeing a wild animal. They're going for the kill. And, you combine that with a confined space, like somebody being trapped in a mall. It's just like, hey, I only got a certain number of doors that I can go past. Like
Yeah,
if something's behind there, I'm done.
yeah. And then you mentioned earlier about like the actual um, special effects that aren't like CGI related.
Mm,
And I think the movie that does that, the one that for me personally, it's my favorite horror movie, is The Thing, and it is a
mm.
remake. And
John Carpenter.
I don't think it's really been touched in terms of what am I thinking the realism of the special
The practical
effects, the
effects, yeah.
practical effects. Yes, exactly, the practical effects. I don't think it's been touched. I think that it still holds up, and that's why any talk of like a remake is always kind of it's always kind of frustrating to me because I can still watch that movie and I feel the same way I do with any current movie that I've seen.
Mm.
That's why I asked you about like *Malignant* the other day or earlier today, um, just to kind of gauge like you know what your response might have been. But yeah, we'll wait on that one. I can cut that
Haven't
out too.
seen it yet. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I think that has a lot to do with like uh quality of care, especially with like the 70s and 80s, like your John Carpenter, your Clive Barker, like Hellraiser, whenever had those figures, those monsters that had to be seen
Yeah.
from the audience's eyes, and like you have somebody like Pinhead coming out, you know, he's got like his leather bound choker, like his garb, and like, you know, the pin sticking in his head, you know, you gotta realize that guy was in the costume chair for like
Mm-hmm.
6, 7, 8 hours, you know, like that guy was there for a while, so they wanted that to come out looking as best they possibly can. Makeup team. So those are the ones where you really see that like practical effects can shine like so much better than CGI and
Yeah,
special effects when done correctly.
for sure.
Yeah.
And then of course, see, like one of the movies that complete opposite end of the spectrum that benefited more from the CGI and not the practical effects was the It remake. You've seen both of them, right?
Yes, absolutely.
They're very good.
They are good in the effects of which, like, this is what it is able to do to you, projecting upon your fears, showing those, you
Yeah,
know, those terrible things that these children are scared of in real life. Like, if, you know, today's effects, today's big movie budgets for a horror movie, even, like, that was the best route for them to go to. Like,
for sure.
absolutely, I agree 100%.
Yeah,
You know, nothing against Tim Curry because, you know, as the character Pennywise, he commanded that, like,
he was the only
role.
good thing about it.
There was a young Seth Green, but it was silly. It was for the 1990s. Like here we are. Like we're 30 years later.
Yeah,
Um, and like the level of horror wasn't the same, especially in the second part of the like it's a little bit more goofy,
yeah,
but it's still like this terrifying like fucking spider clown thing with razor sharp fangs. Like that's scary any day of the week for somebody.
yeah,
So I think with the CGI, they were definitely able to shine that out a little bit more.
yeah. Um, and again, I think that's why. It's because we have a lot of these horror movies pre '90s. Excuse me,
Yeah,
about to sneeze.
and that was a big cornerstone for like uh, Hollywood in the movie making machine. Like if you're going out, you know, on Friday night, like oh, here's another horror movie, scared, and that's why you would see so many of those remakes being shot like year after year. Like oh, part one comes out next year, part two the year after that. Like now you'll see like a lot of wait time in horror movies
Mm-hmm.
and sequels in general, but it's just because there's so much stuff coming out. You know, here we are back in the 80s. There was probably like, you know, maybe one or two, three movies coming out in a month. Now we have like 12 in a month. Like
Yeah,
it's so much more of a rat race to get out those movies as quickly as you possibly can. But and you can see that too. Like you know, look at the Friday the 13th versus like you know Halloween or like the Elm Street series. You know, there's so much there's so many sequels. I'm sorry. So you can see that quality drop in certain ones. Like, oh, I really liked Part 5. Oh, Part 8 for me. You know, versus like, oh, here's a consistent film series, which is it's not easily done. I'll admit, but I think when you map out your movie over so many spans, whether you know it happens or not, it's harder to keep up that same level.
for sure. Another good one is Scooby Doo.
Live action Scooby-Doo, yeah.
Yeah, the live action. Like, I still go back and watch that movie just for a fun time because it's, to me, honestly, it's proof that you can you can keep absolute true to the source material, and you don't have to sacrifice any sort of goofiness for realism. You can keep both, and it can be that way. And that's why I absolutely love the first live action Scooby Doo movie, because they didn't sacrifice any of those things. They went absolute 100%, as close to the source material as possible, and I thought it was pretty damn good.
No, absolutely. Like, yeah, like you said, it's a movie that you can honestly watch again and feel that sort of thing. Because I mean, one casting, you had Freddie Prinze Jr. as Fred, Matthew Lillard commanding Shaggy, like Sarah Michelle Gellar as Daphne, and Linda Cardinelli as Velma. Like those four on their own would make any movie fantastic. But you put them all together, you give them the role of Mystery Inc. Those roles came to life.
Hmm.
CGI Scooby, but Lillard my God, like he portrayed that as if that was a real breathing dog, man. Like, with him
Yeah,
jumping on and licking, like hanging out, eating together, like it was believable. And that 2002, 2003, like, yeah, the CGI may not be perfect by today's standards, but the fact of the matter is that movie's enjoyable, as a good plot. It was not age discerning, like kids or adults could follow along, laugh at, and like
there are parts of it that were
music.
creepy too. Parts of it
No,
that were
no,
a little bit more
legitimately.
adult as well.
Like some of those jokes might have flown over a kid's head, but you could still be laughing there, like, oh, okay, like, hey, I can enjoy this with my family. It never seemed like, oh man, this movie's a kids movie, blah blah, like, or I gotta shield the kid's eye. Like it was literally, and I hate to use the phrase "fun for the whole family," but that's exactly what it was. And like, shit, Sugar Ray is in there,
Yeah,
right? Like, come on. And
but but that's one of the things that frustrates me is it's the one example, like it's the proof that you don't have to take all those things out of a storyline to make it work, and they didn't, and I'm glad for it. And it's
like
just
I
frustrating
said,
that we're still seeing that happen today,
at 20 years later,
kind of like with Mulan,
yeah, here we go,
the Mulan remake. God, dude,
coming for you, Disney.
I
We're
don't
not.
think I've
No.
watched a single Disney movie remake that I've liked.
It's a very, you talk about milking the cash cow, like grinding the gears of the machine. And Disney will try again and again to like force this idea down your throat that they're like innovative and like, oh, look at this magical world that we're using. It's literally just their CGI, like Pixar movies that are trying that hard.
You know,
Because when it comes to like, there's no more traditional animations that are getting made. It's literally just saying, oh, here's an idea that is 100% just gonna be a live action remake of what we already have. And that's not even to talk about what has just come out in Cruella, because that's a whole nother garbage fest. And here we are with Little Mermaid on the horizon. But
yeah,
my goodness, starting with Beauty and the Beast, you had like this completely unnecessary remake. Like, Beauty and the Beast is one of two animated features that have been nominated for Best Picture at the Oscar. Now, whether you think the Oscars are worth a damn, whole nother argument.
yeah,
Like, you got to recognize for the time period, like where so many movies were coming out, and they're like, oh well, we really don't know what to nominate for Best Picture, but this animated film by Disney encapsulated so much either wonderment or just excitement from the audience that they felt it necessary to even be nominated for Best Picture. Then you have the balls to say, well, what if we slap a new paint job on that, take out all the animation, add a bunch of casts of people that honestly didn't have much freaking chemistry in the first place, and try and make that new thing?
yeah.
No, that was terrible.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Like, it's just and they're even trying to make like a prequel spin-off of that now. Like, come on, man. Like, what are you doing? Like, trying to I don't know, man. Like,
Well, the thing,
you're knocking. I'm sorry, I
no,
can't even.
no, yeah, the Mulan movie though, like the problem I had with it the most was the whole what happened with Mushu.
Yeah.
Like, I remember whenever it was actually going on,
Mm.
the complaints were that there's no reason there should be a talking dragon, and my thought was like, but you're replacing it with a phoenix,
Mm.
one, and two, like your heroine is literally doing like backflips off the wall and shit like that. It's
Yeah.
already unbelievable, and
Exactly.
I don't know why. I don't know why Disney has to look at like their old projects and see problems with them in every single like aspect. Like
Mm.
and I remember like watching the Hobbit films after seeing Bard, the actor. I forget his name. What's the actor's name?
Uh, he was in Fast and Furious too. I don't know why I always forget
Gaston.
it. Yeah, no,
Gaston
no, he
Gauzy.
wa- he was he was there. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
remember like seeing him in the Hobbit and thinking like, oh, they're making a Beauty and the Beast movie. That'd be badass if he was Gaston. He's
Oh, Luke Evans.
Luke
Luke
Evans.
Evans is
Yeah,
his name.
I thought he
Yeah.
would be a perfect Gaston, right?
Yeah.
And then of course the movie comes out and it's absolutely awful. And the adding in music, the changing of the music. It's like this movie was, like you said earlier, this movie was this movie was put up for an Oscar, like, for Best Picture. Why do you think there's anything wrong with it?
Exactly.
And
You're,
two, like, it's I honestly think it's because people don't realize that we do actually want to see a shot for shot remake. You know, we talked about this before. We
yeah.
do want to see it. We do want to see a shot for shot remake because we don't have a shot for shot remake.
Yes.
Like, you changing the story doesn't change the overall story. Like, you changing
Yeah.
little small elements here and there, it doesn't really change anything. So what does it matter that you even have made a movie at this point? Like, I don't understand it, you know, and it kind of goes into like what my thoughts are with like all these video game remakes. The reason why I'm so frustrated with these game remakes, I guess I'm not really frustrated about it, but how I see it at least is they're all, almost every single one of them are cash grabs. Every single one of
Absolutely.
them. Like,
Yeah.
there's no if, ands, or buts about it. If you're remaking a movie, if you're making a video game in a better engine, if you're making it look better in HD or whatever the fuck, it doesn't matter. If you're remaking a video game and it doesn't have a solid core design change like Resident Evil 2,
Mm.
because Resident Evil 2 is actually a really cool remake, but if it doesn't have like a solid change to it, then to me personally, that is just a cash grab. Because you have had, you know, imagine the time, right? Like look at the time it's taken them to make Final Fantasy VII.
Right. Yeah.
Any normal studio could have put out 5 or 6 games in that time.
Right.
Why are you taking so fucking long to remake a game, and you're making
Already
it the
exists.
exact same story as before, just with small elements here and there that's been twisted? Like, you get what I'm saying, right? Like,
Oh, definitely. And the worst part of that is like they're releasing it in like episodic or like parts, and they did a similar thing with the Hitman remake. And it's just like, oh, like that's the big thing I have to deal with video game industry in general. It's like, release the fucking game. Like, I've already spent this amount of money on the game. Release the whole game. Like, why
yeah,
do you need to release this in parts? Like, now I have to wait another 3 years to play the middle part of the game, and another 3, 4 years to play the last part of the game.
yeah.
Like, why did you take up that much time to make a game? Game that already exists. You're literally just remaking the game. Like,
I just feel like all that effort is just like what, I don't understand it. Like, you're putting so much effort into a story that you already have.
you struck gold. Like, what are you expecting to keep digging? And like, oh wow, look, a diamond mine underneath that, and oh, there was an oil field underneath that. Like, what are you doing? Like, it already happened. You can't reinvent something that's already been done, man. Like, you can't do that. Like,
Like, don't get me wrong, I mean, Final Fantasy VII was extremely enjoyable. Like I said, Resident Evil
yeah,
2 was a really good game, and it was fun to play. Um, you know, expounded on some of the storyline from before, which is cool. And, you know, those are good. They're, in my opinion, they're good remakes. I just don't understand why you wouldn't put that time towards making a new game for either, you know, one, the current storyline, Resident Evil 9,
mm, yeah,
or Final Fantasy 16, 17, whatever the fuck, it doesn't matter. Like, why
yeah,
would you put so much effort into remaking this game when you could be making new games? And
exactly.
is that also just because, you know, like a lack of writing, like a lack of creativity? Like, is that really just it? It's just we're not creative enough, and we've accepted that, and we're moving forward from it. We're moving forward with it now. We're just gonna be making remakes now. Like, is that a conscious decision being made, or is
I,
it
I feel like I
like, are
feel like it
people
would
just
have to
lying to
be.
themselves?
I feel like it would have to be because you got to think about, like you said, like they're not making something new, and like they're creating these development teams. They're probably pulling them from other places. Or like, oh, we got to put a stop to this game now because we got to make this, and that. And I
Yeah.
feel like it's the same. It's the same type of suffering that happened ultimately with Final Fantasy 15. It took so long to make it. It took so many developers, so many teams going on. And what happened? They ultimately had to publish an unfinished gem. because there was like 75 pieces of DLC, of which the story was never completed, by the way, because that team ended up falling through, leaving Square Enix and starting their own company. So it's just like that should tell you something.
Yeah.
Like your workers are going to get like fed up with it. They're like, I'm not being able to express myself creatively because I'm stuck doing this fucking game that somebody already made. Somebody who already created this masterpiece, this work of art. Like, what do you expect out of me, man? Like, can't write Moonlit Sonata again. It already exists. You know what I mean? Like, you can't.
You're gonna
It's
give somebody the
ridiculous.
wrong idea.
Yeah. Like, is it as impressive of a second person becomes the next Michael Jordan? Like, the Michael Jordan already exists. Like, why are you trying to do that? Become the first yourself. Like, I've never understood that. Like, there's one thing about like making an homage to something, but having your own like legitimate different idea with its own creative spin, and then
Yeah.
basically saying, "Well, I saw a lot of Scorsese in myself. That's why I decided to remake The Departed." Like, you can't do that, dude. Like, that was already done. That in itself was a remake. So it's just like I don't understand what you want. Like, what do you expect the audience to go in here and like pretend like they're seeing this for the first time? It's like, no, I'm not. I've seen Beauty and the Beast probably 100 times in my lifetime.
Yeah. I
Like,
I want to be surprised. I want to have
yes.
storyline that's enthralling, and I want to have twists and turns along the way, and I want to know. I'm sorry. I want to not know who dies. I want to not know what happens because that's how stories end up sticking with you. And if I'm going in to watch Beauty and the Beast, I mean, I know the storyline of Beauty and the Beast. I don't need to watch the fucking remake with,
Exactly.
as far as I'm concerned, like subpar quality with worse music because the music in the original was absolutely fine. Like,
Yeah.
I don't need to watch these things. Um, we're not like totally against these remakes. Don't get that impression with it. We do have some that we're actually looking forward to. Um, I didn't even know this. We just literally found this out before we started this. Akira is being remade by Taika Waititi, or at least it's supposed to
Yep.
be. And that's what the hopes are. And if that happens, dude, like I'm already like hyped about that. Like I
Uh,
trust Taika Waititi. Everything he's ever done has been extremely enjoyable for me.
For a guy who's made his entire career on the basis of thinking outside the box, like,
Yeah,
man, that man has delivered like time and again. Like, I'm not saying the man can do no wrong, but you go in there with an almost blind sense of like, okay, this guy's gonna go off the rails, but he's gonna keep that same story traction. And this is a guy who can, like, I think, bring those big ideas to life
yeah.
with practical effects or CGI. Like, that this is a big world that we're talking about here, and I think that I think it's in good hands. Development, length aside, Marvel, I know it's kind of like split in his focus and everything here, but it's just like, I think it's in good hands.
I mean, it sounds like it. I mean, it's like I said. I have a lot of faith in him. Um, I don't think I can name a single movie of his like in the past 10 years, however long he's been super relevant. I don't think I could name one that I did not enjoy. I mean, even going back to literally the stuff. What was it? What we do in the shadows?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
things
even
like
even
that.
the show is still going on as well. So like it's translated to the small screen, and I think ultimately, even if it for some reason wasn't a movie, if they made it like a serial event or like maybe season by season, I think he would do fine.
He's got an
Oh,
extremely good sense of humor, and I
absolutely.
think to approach a lot of these things, you got to have that sense of humor because if you're too serious,
Mm,
that's gonna shine through in your work.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
for a guy who made Jojo Rabbit,
Yeah, I
can't be
mean, if
too
you can laugh
serious.
about something about that, yeah, exactly. Like I hate the phrase subverting your expectation, but like, man, like that definitely, like, oh, it's another World War II movie. I'm kind of putting myself in the serious hat here, and then you're like, oh shit, can
Watch
I
it.
even laugh at that? Yeah, no, because
Yeah,
you're like,
go watch it.
is that okay? Like, the guy, yeah, he truly is.
Of course, it's got Sam Rockwell, and it's
How do you?
like Sam Rockwell. You already know how I feel about Sam Rockwell.
I'm
I
right there
I
next to you.
personally think he's he's got to be like in my at least top three best actors here in America. Dude, I love Sam
yeah,
Rockwell.
we had that a conversation. I just got my friend's wife to finally watch Mr. Right, and I was just like, oh, thank you.
Mm,
Like, I need to talk about this with you. I love that movie so much. Like, oh, Suit, my God, like
yeah.
that guy was dressed to the nines in that movie. But the soundtrack, every part of that movie, just, I felt like it was so like engaging with its audience.
Yeah, I mean, another one that was it kind of rubbed me the wrong way was the Pokemon um, CGI one they did for Netflix.
Yeah. And see that's hitting two nails on the head. That's like the nostalgia, the generational gap. Like, oh hey, I grew up on Pokemon, but then you're seeing like that again, that disregard for traditional animation and seeing the CGI happen.
Well, the two things that frustrated me the most were, I guess one of them goes hand in hand with another, but one was that was the original Ash voice for the
Yeah.
original movie, and
Mm,
so I prefer the original Ash voice.
mm,
And two, the weirdness that they took the movie and made it, pretty damn close to shot for shot remake.
mm.
Right? It was really close, and then skipped out on like really key moments like the brother song.
Yeah.
Like
That was setting an entire scene.
for me, that scene is obviously right. It's obviously the absolute most important scene in the entire movie, but
Yeah.
two, it's because of that song. Like as a kid, we saw that in theaters. I'm sure. I'm
Yeah.
sure you saw it too.
Yeah.
Like I
I
saw that
did
shit in
actually.
theaters, dude.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Like I remember the song. Like as a kid, sitting in the theater, hearing that song and thinking, like, oh my god, like this is sad. We shouldn't fight our
Yes.
brothers. Like
Exactly.
it
This
was a
some
beautiful song. It was a beautiful moment, and it was really lacking for me. Like whenever we watched through it, right? Like
yeah.
sitting here and Zach, I'm sitting here waiting for the
Like,
song. It just
oh
doesn't happen.
yeah,
And I'm like,
exactly.
okay, I
Gotta turn up
guess,
the volume. Maybe it's playing in the background. Like,
right?
no, it's not there. What's
So
going on? Like,
afterwards, I had to go and
all
get
your
on
Netflix
YouTube, and I had to show my son, like, hey, well, this is the
actual
original. Let
scene.
me show you exactly how it
Yeah.
goes. But yeah, no, it's kind of
Did
kind of
did
depressing.
he enjoy it more with the song?
Yeah, no, he absolutely did. And
Yeah.
yeah, so, I showed it to him whenever he was like really young. He just didn't remember it.
Yeah. Like
So
you're waiting for that answer because you know it's gonna be there. But it's no, it's crazy. And it's crazy for me for two parts because one, like, to just show them the original movie, and two, it's like, are you trying to tell me that like Pokemon, like the company, doesn't have the rights to that song, or they couldn't afford the rights? You're talking about a multi-billion-dollar like
yeah,
corporation. Like, come on, get out of here.
they're going
It's
nowhere.
crazy. It's insane to think like somehow having the not music would take away from the scene when like it clearly would. Like, you're trying to set a tone for the audience for them to be immersed in it. And
And
I think immersion is why that series works so well.
and for a song that's so specifically that scene,
Yes.
like it is that scene. For it to not
You
be
you,
there, it's just like
you couldn't play that over the fucking credits and expect to have the same level of impact. And there's something I want to bring up because it reminds me of another movie that kind of misused the power of music, and I can bring that up later though.
no, what is it?
Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat. Yeah,
Nothing. Yeah, like, do
we've
what you
touched on
want
it. We've
about like,
touched on it.
yeah, the terribleness of the Mortal Kombat remakes theme. One, not being played in the movie at all, and then being put in the credits, expecting it to have that same level of impact, versus the original 1990s playing the theme as Liu Kang is fighting
Yeah,
Shang Tsung. Like, that set the whole scene, man. Like, that is Mortal Kombat. He's challenging this guy.
it doesn't even take any
It,
effort. Just
no,
just go
not at
pick the right
all.
scene and put it there.
Yes, there was tons of fights that it could have been put in there. Like, it just didn't make any sense to me. Like, I just,
Even if you're gonna do like a remixed, a remixed copy of the song and put it at the end of the movie, why not
yeah,
just put the original theme in somewhere random? You know, like
exactly.
it's
Even
not
like,
even in it.
And that's the problem too, because now with like technology, like yeah, maybe they're not gonna go to a diner with a jukebox to have it play about, but maybe it's somebody's ringtone, maybe it just plays on their phone. Like there's so many things that it could
Yeah.
have been like put in. Like my God,
Pay an
you don't have to take
homage.
off. Yeah, you don't have to take out a damn boombox and blast it. Like it's like, oh hey guys, look, product placement. It's like just make it
From
simple.
the Kung Fu Hustle guy in the background.
Yeah, exactly. Hey Black Betty, bro, Black Betty. It's crazy to think that, man. Like I don't
Yeah.
know.
Another good example of the Jumanji movies. Um,
Yes.
very
Welcome
funny.
addition. Yeah.
Yeah, totally welcomed. Of course, you can't go wrong with that cast.
Oh,
It's
this
probably the
is
most solid cast of all time, like for comedy at least.
yeah, no, like they're all funny. They all play off themselves so well, and I think it's that dual level of having to play a role of somebody else playing that role, and then
Yeah,
having to put your mindset like, oh, I'm not the Rock playing an explorer. I'm the Rock playing this kid who's playing the Rock as an explorer. Like
yeah.
it's insane, but it works.
Um, it does work. I like the first one quite a bit. Second one was pretty good. I don't think it was as good as the first one, but still, it's still pretty good.
Yeah.
I do think
They
they're in
added
a
Danny
weird
Glover.
spot.
Yeah.
I do think they're in a weird spot, though. I think that they could very easily ruin the entire series with like the wrong movie. I just sometimes it's okay to quit while you're ahead,
I agree
and
because
yeah, I'm just saying that I don't know their plans, obviously, but
uh,
yeah, I
we'll
mean,
send Jumanji Riders.
we've seen what
I
happens with Fast and the Furious. It's
yeah.
apparently is never ending, and
I
I
mean, I think
don't.
they got like two more films and like a whole slew of spin-offs. Like speaking of The Rock, I actually really enjoy Hobbs and Shaw because you don't have to look at that as a Fast and the Furious movie at all.
Hmm.
I saw that with my roommate. He's never seen a Fast and Furious movie. He's like, I don't understand when like is the racing like what are they racing to something? And I was like, this is a spin-off, man. Like there's characters from those series in here, but you don't have to watch a single one to understand that. They
Yeah,
basically tell you what you need to know, and again, it could stand out completely on its own as never even having that name. If anything, the name basically just brought them fans of the Fast and Furious to see the movie because he ended up watching that movie and loving it. And I was just like, yeah, dude, like it was cool. It was probably the best Fast and Furious movie I've seen. Again, it didn't even need to be so.
yeah,
But I think when you have like characters that really play off each other so well, like Jason Statham and The Rock, when are you ever gonna see them in another movie like that? Like it's pretty damn good. And I think that's the difference between having like a movie that's successful and saying, "Okay, let's make a sequel. Let's see if we can find that same magic in a completely different setting,"
yeah.
or saying, "Okay, we've already planned this as like a series of 7 films, so we're gonna just kind of like leave you breadcrumbs as you go, and then hopefully it builds up to this thing." And that's not always a good model for stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it's kind of hard.
I checked out like the fourth movie. After watching the fourth
Fast and
movie,
Furious,
yeah.
yeah,
After watching the fourth movie, I
never.
was just kind of like, what am I gonna do?
Whenever the titles stop making sense. Um, I don't know, man. Like it's like in my opinion, that series it has to be a movie that you watch when you just want to be oddly entertained enough without having to invest in an actual story. 'Cause I think if you're going to those movies trying to watch a story so that you can like break down like, oh man, this is a callback from the first one whenever he decided to shift gears. It's crazy like that. Like I don't think that's what those movies are about, and I think that the fact that they're trying so hard to focus that way now, it's kind of like a little too weird. I
Yeah,
don't know,
it
man.
is really weird.
It's like you know,
It's not
it's like
like
trying to.
it's
I
not like you
don't know,
have
that's
like 30, 40 years worth of like lore
Fast and the
for
Furious
Fast and
lore,
Furious.
exactly.
You've
Yeah.
literally made 9 movies in the past 20 years,
Hmm.
and if there's a writing issue in the world, right, with creativity, then you're going to be suffering most from it because you're putting out way too much content too quickly, right? Like that kind of stuff.
Oh, definitely. And there was even like that whole like series of Fast and Furious type clone movies, like when we saw Torque with the whole motorcycle races, and
Yeah.
like Not to say that Death Race had any like real like strict bonds with Fast and Furious, but there was a lot of racing movies coming out at the same time. We got Need for Speed, which again was already a video game series in itself, and Driver, the same thing. But like, oh, maybe racing movies is going to be the next hot trend, so they all try to like jump on that. Red Line 2, it's like, like how many times can you make the same type of movie?
It's the same movie.
People, yeah, exactly,
They're
and
all
that's
the
because I
same
thought,
exact movie.
like I actually enjoyed Torque. Like it was really silly. Like the whole like, oh, let's put nitrous on motorcycles and see if we can do the same thing. But it was just like, I don't know. Like maybe it was the actors that kind of like sold it for me.
Oh,
But
I mean, I enjoy the first 4 Fast and Furious movies. I haven't watched anything
yeah,
past 4.
yeah.
I don't know if I would like them, but it's just like, have you ever like hit a point where you just don't even care where the story is going?
Absolutely.
Because that's where I am with like Fast and the Furious. It's like
Yeah.
it's kind of how I am with like most crime movies too. Like,
Mm.
don't get me
There's
wrong.
only one of two. Yeah, there's one
I
of two scenarios.
yeah,
Bad guy
I
gets away.
think I think the Departed is like one of the best movies that's ever been made. Like I personally think it's really that good. Um, but when it comes to most crime movies and like dramas, it's just unless it's like a very particular story, like I don't know, like Mystic River.
Yeah.
That movie's a great movie.
Oh, that was a twist you did not see coming.
Yes, like it's something beyond, like Gran Torino, another one, right? Like it's a
Yeah.
movie where it's just like it's pure drama
Mhm.
for drama's sake, but
Yeah.
it works. It works. But like whenever you have a movie where it's just like every third scene is someone getting inside their car and like
Yeah.
drifting around a corner, it's just like that
Yeah.
becomes the story. That becomes them walking essentially, right? Like they don't
Oh, no,
walk anywhere. That's their
absolutely.
form of
Yeah.
transportation. It's just like I'm not
Go get some
interested in it.
milk. You guys want anything?
Yeah.
Right? Like going to the barbecue and you're like, oh man, he's got to braise that chicken in 20 minutes or less. You're like, I'll get there, I'll get there, I'll get there.
Yeah.
Like
It's
it's
just like
crazy.
that's basically every single storyline is we got to get somewhere real quick.
Could never cast Christopher Walken in a Fast and Furious movie. Would not be allowed on set. You're like, you don't understand what we're doing here. Get out of here. Get out of here. We need Usain Bolt now. It's
It
like, I
just
don't even need a car, man. Like, what are you talking about?
it just doesn't
The
make
life
sense
is
to me
drifting.
anymore.
Absolutely. It's become so. I wouldn't even say over formulated because the formula is like drive A to point B,
Yeah.
insert as much coolness as you can. Like, and see the thing is like Tokyo Drift was supposed to be like, oh well, we're not doing the races the same way anymore. Now we're doing mountain stuff, we're drifting. It's a completely different environment, whole new cast of character. Then they're kind of just forgotten by the next movie. They're like, oh well, don't worry, this takes place X amount of years into the future, sort of thing. I don't know. They don't even know their own timeline anymore. Like it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
You got rocket cars and jetpacks and all this other crazy shit. It's like, what the hell?
Yeah.
I don't think
Another
there's a single.
do what?
I don't think there's a single race in Hobbs and Shaw. Like they're just like doing spy stuff.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen that one, I would suggest check it out. Like you don't need any prior knowledge.
Another movie that benefits from like CGI and updated graphics or special effects, right? House on Haunted Hill. Like the original, good in its own right, obviously, but
Like what, the 50s, wasn't it? The original?
the Vincent Price one,
Yeah.
yeah. House on Haunted Hill was, good in its own right, but then you get the one with Jeffrey Rush, and it's just like that new one was so badass, and I remember it was like the scariest movie in the world to me. My brother, my cousin, we were watching it late at night. We had the lights completely off. They bailed
Yeah.
out of the room to go get a drink from the kitchen, and of course, the moment they left, because they had already seen the movie, the moment they left was the moment where she's got the camera and she's looking down the hallway, right?
Yeah.
And she sees a figure on the camera, but she looks up and
Mhm.
nothing's there. Like that
Yeah.
scene. And I remember sitting there like, those assholes, they left me. They did this shit on purpose. And of course they did.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
And
I
I
remember
just,
like renting that from Blockbuster, just crying the whole time. I'm like,
yeah.
please, like, why am I watching this?
I just remember that moment, man. Like it
He digs.
came forward and started screaming, and I was on the verge. I was on
I
the
was
verge. I was close.
adopted. He literally got saved in that movie because he's like, I have nothing to do with this, and nobody believes him. And at the end of the movie, the ghost's about to kill him, and he's just like,
Yeah.
I was adopted. They're like, oh, well, my apologies, sir. Be on your way. And then what ends up with like $3 million a piece at the end of that? Like, hell yeah.
Yeah. But no, yeah, House on Haunted Hill was a really great remake, and
Yeah, absolutely.
it was one of those movies that, like I said, benefited from the more modern day um, graphics and CGI and whatnot, and I think that's why I think it's a common theme because it holds true. I think it holds true.
Yeah. Like you're not attempting to like twist the storyline in like some that doesn't make sense. They're not looking for like pirate treasure and a sunken submarine
Yeah,
or something like that. It's like, no, dude, like it's stay in this house until morning. Whoever survives, it's this, but they're not telling you why the house is haunted. Blah 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 blah. Like, and it was a good cast. And since you know how the story unfolds, you don't have to worry about anyone being like a screen hogging really or anything like that. Everyone gets, I guess a decent amount of time to really like flesh out their characters for
yeah.
what they need to be. Like it's a survival game, like essentially. So it's like by the end, you're like, okay, like I care enough about the characters. I know their deal.
Um, Ghostbusters,
Okay, so
the obvious terrible remake, and then the one that
Jesus,
I'm looking forward to. Right, like I just
yeah, and
I just found it so
it's a,
weird. Like you don't have again, you don't have to change the storyline. You don't have to make it your own way with things in mind that have nothing to do with the content itself because we're trying to meet like some quota on
mm,
casting. Just why not make a storyline specifically? Because the thing that was frustrating for me, right? Like the movie was fine. Like it wasn't great. It wasn't that good. But I find it weird. Like the whole point of that movie was to make an all female cast
mm,
and poke fun at Chris Hemsworth
yeah.
and his character.
So yeah, he was the he was the bombshell. He was the the,
Yeah,
the sexy but dumb ditzy secretary character.
and I feel like it backfired because to me, Chris
Yeah,
Hemsworth was the funniest part of that fucking movie. Every single time he
exactly.
came on screen, I laughed my ass off. Like he was being funny and like to me, and so I feel like that backfired from
They
what they
they
were
they,
trying to
they
accomplish.
tried they tried to typecast him in a role, and he broke free of that reign, and then he ended up carrying it. It was this very similar thing as done with the Men in Black International. They basically try to take the same characters from Ragnarok again,
Yeah,
Taika Waititi, and try and like capture it, but it just didn't go the same way. It wasn't the same type of thing. Just like because you cast two people together doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna have the same chemistry.
yeah,
Yeah, in the female Ghostbusters, they literally just like, oh, let's flip the script and be as as different as we possibly can. It's just like, well, then make a different movie, man. Like you're not Ghostbusters anymore. Like what are you trying to be? My God, do you
yeah.
really want to see like the exorcism from the fucking perspective of the demon? Like, and why would you? It's a completely different movie.
I am looking forward to the most current trailer for Ghostbusters remake,
Yeah, Ghostbusters Afterlife looks like it
or not
looks like
remake,
what
but
the
I guess a sequel, right?
yes, it looks like what the female led should have been, which is a legacy. It should have been a legacy film saying, okay, like these are the grandsons or daughters, sons, whatever you want to make
Yeah,
it. Say ties to the original movie are there in the fact that this is like a descendant or whatever, like this is related to that at a completely different setting. Yet here is that same equipment. They have the Ghost Mobile. They have the spectral. They've got the freaking packs. Like
yeah,
pieces are there. They just need their own sort of storyline. And from what the story it's being told in the trailer, it's been like X amount of years since there's been any ghost sightings, so people don't even believe that they're real anymore. So this world is really expecting us to believe like, oh, okay, like ghosts exist, but now they're just completely ignorant of like their existence. I think that's kind of weird. I'm hoping that the story is going to present himself in a way that people can say, okay, this is Ghostbusters. This is what I remember growing up with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's how you make fans for the new generation.
Another remake. Another one I'm looking forward to is the Candyman.
Yeah, a remake of, some would say, a horror
There's a
movie
lot of.
classic.
I feel like there's a lot of good old horror films that could be remade very well,
Yeah,
and
like you can touch up on stuff, man. Like it's not like saying you
yeah,
can't. Like especially if you have somebody like Tony Todd who has that like distinct voice, who necessarily doesn't even have to be on screen, but can just voice the character,
yeah,
and you'll get that same impact. I feel like the same thing it would be done even if like Saw, like Tobin Bell's like gravely sort of like Jigsaw voice is so iconic that
yeah.
he wouldn't even have to be on the movie screen. Like he could just do the voices of Jigsaw and it would be perfect.
I'm looking forward to Spiral. We saw it on Amazon Prime. I wanted to watch it, but I think we're
Mm.
gonna wait maybe a little bit longer before we watch it. We do have we did make just a short list, 3 different movies that we think um, could
Good
be
candidate. Yeah.
retouched,
Yeah.
and one of those is going to be, or at least my pick was Wishmaster. Um, Recently rewatched Wishmaster, and I think it suffers from lack of pretty much it was made in '97, so it didn't have the best CGI. The graphics themselves weren't very good, and for a movie that's literally about a genie, a djinn, and he's just granting wishes left and right and stealing people's souls. I feel like it's one of those opportunities that, with the modern day graphics and CGI and special effects, there's just so much that can be done with something like that. And that's why I picked that one. Was I think it's just one of those movies that could benefit so much from like how movies are made these days. And the reason why I brought up Malignant was, um, I would say watch it because
Okay.
I'm not going to spoil nothing, right? But it is. I think it's a pretty good take on like a modern day horror,
Okay.
and it's filmed very well. I really did like. I really did like a lot
Cinematography.
of the cinematography. Yeah,
No.
a lot of really cool action in that too. But yeah, just on your own time, just watch it. But it's free on HBO Max. I mean,
Yeah, I'll check it
plenty
out.
of HBO Max. But I think like with a movie like Wishmaster, after you watch *Malignant*, you'll see what I'm talking about. Like, there's so much that can be done these
A modern
days.
take. Yeah.
Yeah, that a movie like Wishmaster could really benefit from. And the next one was yours.
Um, this is a movie that I've thought about for a while, like because it was not misused in its own right, but just never really like lived up to the potential that the company behind it saw. But Treasure Planet, I think that it was one of the last true like traditionally animated films that Disney had put out,
Joseph
and
Gordon-Levitt, man.
stellar cast, music, storyline, beautiful. It in itself is a remake of Treasure Island, so it works. They put it in a space setting instead of the age of piracy. But I think that not even necessarily having to do like CGI remake. I mean, I would be fine with a live action remake because I think that that's the sort of like that could really capture audiences,
Mm-hmm.
young and old. Like, but you can even just have him be played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt again. Like he doesn't, not like he ages. Like
Yeah,
I
it's a good
think
point.
that idea would be so great, and like you could see some of that like modern effects really work in a space movie like they haven't already. Like obviously Star Wars and Star Trek, effects are usually at a level where you're just like, man, like what if you took this idea and applied it with a different kind of story, and would it capture that same level of brilliance? And I think with something like that, it definitely could, man. Like hell, I'd even see Jeffrey Rush as Silver, to see him play more Barbosa-esque.
Yeah.
But like, it's,
Well,
it's
one
a
of the movies
man.
that I think showcase like why Treasure Planet would be a good pick and why you could do so much with Treasure Planet is like Valerian. Valerian might not
Mm.
have been like the best movie, but man, they had a lot of cool shit to look at. A
Yeah,
lot of
and
cool
see
shit to look at.
something that's visually appealing. Like it's when something at least looks good, it lets you stuff that wasn't the greatest. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Treasure Planet didn't pull the numbers that Disney wanted. That's why they canceled like the sequel and everything like that, because it could have been a franchise. Who knows? But
It's one of my
I mean,
favorite
I
movies,
really.
especially the song.
Oh, absolutely. I'm Still Here,
I'm still
dude.
here.
Like,
Yeah.
oh my god, like Jesus, that song is amazing. Uh,
Yeah.
I think that it's a true unsung gem of Disney that doesn't get the recognition that it could have gotten.
It's Johnny Resnick, right? Not Goo Goo
Yeah,
Dolls.
yeah.
It was
It's
a solo thing.
specifically him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful song.
It'd be great to see a Goo Goo Dolls concert and just have him like bust it out. Like, what? Like, one night only. It was there when he sang "I'm Still Here."
I remember watching like a performance from him once where he was singing that and he like forgot the lyrics, I guess.
Really?
And
No,
I wouldn't blame him because
yeah,
like
because
it's a
when does
Disney
he play
movie
it?
and he
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
sings a shit ton of like Goo Goo Dolls music over and over and over, so probably just one
Absolutely.
song. But the damn song stuck with me. It's a really
Absolutely.
great song.
I know he performed it like on an episode of like Movie Surfers, if you remember that back on Disney Channel. It was just like a bunch of kids that would like break down trailers or they'd have guests and music and stuff like that. And he was like, "Oh, here's John Resnick just playing it." I'm like, "Okay, I'm fine with this."
I remember seeing
Yeah.
he was on Tosh.0.
Really?
Did you ever see that episode?
I don't think
It's
so.
so weird, dude. He's like singing a
I
song.
want to now.
It's so weird. Just skip Tosh.0 Johnny Resnick. It's really funny.
I will. Like that sounds hilarious. Like Goo Goo Dolls ever lost popularity? Like,
Yeah, still one of the best.
yeah, they're still like a huge like college rock. Like they'll like do tours all the time now.
And
Did a
then
tour a couple years ago.
the last movie we have on our list, kind of like a co agreement. Page Master.
Yes.
If you've never seen Page Master, go and watch
If you've
it.
never seen Page Master, go and watch it, man.
Or wait
Like,
for the remake.
yeah, wait for the remake. Where it's in the pipeline if we get our way. That movie is just like, my God, like storytelling brilliance. Like literally storytelling.
Yeah.
Like
It's a movie
it's
literally
just like,
about books coming to life.
yes, like, oh my God, like if you ever just like, oh, this book was so good, I got so into it. Like, what if this was real? Like that is what that movie is about. Like, it is stories coming to life.
Getting lost in the storytelling.
Yeah, like it's awesome.
It's a very good movie. Only thing I can really think of that was like it that was live action was like Inkheart.
Yeah, yeah.
Inkheart was a good movie. I definitely liked it.
Blend.
But no, yeah, Page Master would make a really good. There's a lot of really intense scenes in that movie where
Yeah.
like waves crashing and whatnot,
Yeah.
and like magical things going on. So it's one of those movies that could benefit real hugely from modern day special effects.
You know what it reminds me of? Like a Don Bluth picture, like that really like almost realistic way of him like writing like the animated, the faces, like it's a cartoon, but you can like see the emotion on the face. Like it's really well done. Macaulay Culkin delivers as always. Like just that's just what he does. So just a really good story, man. Like
Yeah.
something that I would like want the younger generation to watch. Like it's like, man, like
It's pretty
hasn't
good.
been that kid. Yeah, like who hasn't been that kid just wanting to read a book and like then become part of your favorite stories.
But if it's ever made, right? If it's ever made and the books themselves, because the books literally come to life. They have faces on their spine. Um, they have arms coming out of the book and whatnot. Like if this movie is ever like remade, right, in live action, and the books are turned into humans, I'm gonna be frustrated. Why can't we just have a goddamn book with arms, dude?
With a face, yeah.
Goddamn.
And you know what? And you know what? It would be Wayne as like the adventure book. It would be Kevin Hart as like the horror book because he'd just be like, "Hey man, I'm all scary. Look at me." And then it would be who would be fantasy? Tough one.
I don't know. Maybe like a. I'm thinking like the fairy one, right? Like a
Yeah, it's
Queen
fantasy. I think it
Latifah.
maybe, yeah,
Yeah.
I could see that because it was Whoopi Goldberg originally, and like
Yeah,
Whoopi
yeah,
Goldberg really played into that character a lot. I think what was
I feel
it?
like they'd use their faces and throw them on the books. You know what I mean? And that would be fine with me. Fine with me. But I don't want to see like these books that are supposed to be literal books with
like
arms
people,
and
yeah.
legs and
You don't
shit.
want to see them, yeah, like turned into humans.
It's
Like,
gonna be
no, no,
weird.
no. Yeah. I would love it if they remake it that Macaulay Culkin plays the librarian and then tells
Yeah,
the
that'd be
kid
pretty
like,
cool.
"Oh, you'll never know what can happen when you get inside a good book." And the kid's like, "Oh, what does that mean?" And they're like, "Whoa."
You know, and now that you mention that, right, it could very well just be like a sequel, like a live action sequel. Some
Would
other
be
kid gets
awesome.
lost in a book.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. Just like
you
trying
know,
to like guide.
thinking about it, Neverending Story. I mean,
Mm,
it's pretty close to, but not like the book's coming to life. It's more like the kid being sucked into the book.
yeah, like
But
that is the story.
yeah, Inkheart is the only one I can really think of. I'm sure there are more,
Yeah, I'm sure.
but yeah. So we've talked about that. I mean, from pretty much fashion, the whole craze with buying vinyl
Mm,
records, a lot of the like the rehashed toys and stuff that's being sold these days. All the nostalgia.
yeah.
I personally am not a fan. I don't think I've ever really been into it.
Yeah, and see the only thing I can really say about that is just like I understand if it's like just something that you couldn't like either find or like part of whenever like you're younger. Like I'm not expecting like a 9-year-old to know what a skip it is, but you're like, oh, here's a new skip it toy. Like you know what I mean? Like it's a lot of those things, especially like from board games. Like growing up there was the Clue movie, but then now we have like a Battleship movie. So like maybe they made something like that to like want people to buy the Battleship game. I'm not sure.
Did you watch the Battleship movie?
I did, and again, I think it could have been any other movie without having that title on it. They used the whole grid system once in that movie because an EMP knocks out their targeting systems.
Yeah.
So they're basically just like, oh, let's shoot and see if we hit something, like map it on here. Like it was ridiculous. And of course, it's
Yeah.
one of those movies that try to capitalize on like a singer turned actor. It's like starring Rihanna when she shows up, I think like twice in that whole film. It's like a
Yes.
petty officer or something.
Same thing with Valeria.
Uh,
She was in that as well.
Rihanna was?
Huh?
Oh, that's interesting. Rihanna was?
Yeah, she was. She was
Wow.
like
Well,
the alien that could like shapeshift into different forms.
that makes sense. But yeah, it was kind of like Stomp the Yard. It was like, oh, starring Chris Brown when he like dies in the first 5 minutes of the movie. If you haven't seen Stomp the Yard, I didn't spoil anything. I promise you. But oh, I'm sorry. Like it's just crazy. Like try and like entice people with something that really is ultimately not going to affect the movie. Like if your movie's not good enough, just say your movie's not good enough. Don't try and like say like, oh wow, we got a special appearance from so and so in here. Take up like 30% of the 30 seconds of runtime.
It was John
No,
Carter,
like,
right?
but
The guy who played John Carter
what
in Battleship,
was it?
wasn't it? I can't remember.
Taylor Hitch, right? Is that John
What's
Carter?
his name? John Carter.
Or that movie was like vastly
Taylor
underrated too.
Kitsch.
Yeah, it was Taylor Kitsch.
Yeah.
Was
Battleship,
he
yeah.
in Battleship? Wow.
He was the main guy.
I remember.
And of
Oh,
course,
okay, you know what?
the brother was.
Liam Neeson. Yeah. That's
Well,
why.
Liam Neeson was the commanding officer.
He was the dad.
Was the dad?
Their dad.
Yeah, that's right. He was
He
the,
was the
the
dad
girl's
because
dad.
the brother. Yeah, because the brother dies.
And
That's
the
why.
brother was Eric Northman
Yes.
from True Blood. I have to reference their characters. Um,
Alexander Skarsgård.
Alexander Skarsgård, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I liked Battleship for what it was. I mean, it was just it was a fun movie. Not every movie has to be absolutely fantastic, as proved by like Scooby Doo.
Yeah.
Not every movie
And
has to be a perfect adaptation, but as long as you're
And
like
I,
staying true, man, like
yes, and I think that's what you have to like separate in the mind whenever you're watching one of those things. Like if you're going in there to review, critique, discombobulate the whole thing, then fine. But if you're going in there to see something, just be entertained for that hour and a half, 2 hours, then more power to you. It's just like if you're calling something like, oh, this is based on this, or this is a remake, or this is a live action adaptation, and you're expecting people not to question that, then you're insane. Like
Yeah.
that's exactly what they're going there to do. If it's something they have no previous knowledge of, then fine. But if you're saying like, oh, I was a real fan of Blank growing up, and I'm gonna go see the movie based on Blank, you'd be like,
You're
the hell was
basically
that?
putting money towards a really terrible. That's how I feel. Is you're putting money towards a really terrible fad.
Yeah. No, exactly. And I think there's no company that capitalized more on that sort of mentality than Funko.
Yep.
Funko has completely cornerstoned the nostalgia like factory wish making machine and turned it up to like a million.
Mm.
I was sharing a story with you earlier about when I was like 13, 14 years old. This was back when Hollywood Video was still around, and we went to Hollywood Video to rent like some Christmas movies, like Elf, stuff like that. And there was this box that just had Funko written on the side of it. Never heard of it before. And I look inside there, and there's the first Funko Pops I've ever seen was Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, the Mr. Heat Miser, Ice Miser, and I think was the elf's name? Do you remember the elf, the dentist, the guy who wanted to be a dentist? Whatever it was,
I don't remember.
yeah, it was his Funko Pop as well, if I remember correctly. And I bought them. I was just like, oh, that's cool. I really enjoyed these Christmas movies growing up, and wanted to have the little statues of them. It looked cool. And it wasn't like within like 3 to 6 months later that like just Funkos were everywhere about every possible
Mm-hmm.
thing. Here's a Harry Potter guy. Here's a sports star. Here's talk show host. Like everything. Fast food. There was like McDonald's, Ronald McDonald's. Like everything that you could possibly think of from your childhood to previous hobbies, likes,
Yeah.
dislikes. There was a Funko Pop of it.
I the way I see Funko Pops is they were basically like the reason why they became so big was because they focused on really easy gifts.
Mm,
And like the reason why I say that is because I probably own about 15, 20 pops total.
yeah.
I've bought none of them.
Mm,
I've never spent a single dime towards a pop for myself. Never.
right. Yeah.
Now, I have had friends who have been looking for a specific pop, and if I've seen one, I've bought it for them.
Yeah.
But I have never spent money on a pop for myself. But I own about 20, and
Yeah.
I think that's a really I think that's relevant. That they're basically just kind of making sure that if they've got good gifts or easy gifts, somebody likes
Mm.
Power Rangers and they put out a whole Power Ranger line. Well, there's 5 easy gifts, super cheap.
Exactly.
So
Yeah. No, definitely. But there's also the dark side of that is because it's become the modern day treasure hunt.
mm-hmm.
They create this chase one or this glows in the dark. This has a slightly different coloring to it, and they'll make like 100 of those, 500 of them, and you're like, yo, we call in your local store, your Hot Topic, wherever it's coming from, and like, oh, we got like two in. You gotta come at like Tuesday, 9 in the morning when we open to get it, or else not gonna get it, and then you gotta try and like that secondary market and exorbitant prices. Perfect
This is
example of something.
I've never like I said I've never bought any, but this is the one that my mom gave me for Christmas a few years back, or maybe last year. I forget what year.
I believe you up.
It was badass.
Probably one of the coolest ones I've ever
it's
seen.
it's probably the coolest one I think I've ever seen as well, but it's super relevant.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
look at your shirt.
but the point I'm trying to
Cowboy
make is
Bebop, man.
like my mom otherwise probably would have had a more difficult time finding a gift for me, just something like that, and so that made it
Eh,
super easy for her.
Yeah, because it's like, oh, is there a pop of this? Oh, yeah, it is. Can I get it? Yeah, all right, there you go.
Go to
Like,
GameStop.
it's something. Yeah,
Now,
X marks the spot.
in no way, shape, or form am I dissing pops because I think I like the fad, specifically the pops, because they're not portraying it as anything other than nostalgia.
Yeah, no,
Right? You
they're a
can look
company
them
that
up.
100% is 100% about what they are. Like
Yeah, you can look them up. They
kudos.
openly admit it, and that's
Yeah.
cool. That's fine. They're basically selling you nostalgia, and they know that. But whenever you're getting like remakes of movies and remakes of games and all these different like fashion drops that are just completely irrelevant, I feel like that is whenever the line starts to get drawn or blurred rather. Whenever you get a movie that is is less about like the actual remake and more about telling or are pushing some kind of like weird um, cultural argument, you know what I'm talking about, then that's whenever we stop. You know, that nostalgia is just completely destroyed. It is destroyed. We're not getting the
Yeah.
nostalgia anymore. We're paying for it, but we're not getting it. And then we leave dissatisfied. And I feel like that's a
You're
bad thing.
yeah, you're one of those people who are like walking around with like a "Where's the Beefs" T-shirt with like classic MTV logo, and it's just like I was born like 2014. I don't even know what this is. Like 2000X. It becomes through the whole millennial thing. It's just
Yeah.
like, oh, fashion. I'm a real big fan of Friends. Like you see like it now everywhere. Like you can find that, or like
Like box
sign.
lunch.
Yeah, exactly. Box lunch. Yes, box lunch is a very gigantic purveyor of that nostalgia. Like, oh, here's like a whole wall for Disney, whole wall for like 80s, 90s TV shows, Saved by the Bell, Friends, whatever you want. And oh, here's comic book character, cartoon character. And anime has really reached the second huge resurgence of like mainstream like media attention. So now you can go to like your Hot Topics, your Box Lunches, your Spencers, and you'll just find rows of these like T-shirts, hoodies, backpacks, blankets,
Yeah.
freaking every possible thing you can think of. It'll just be slapped there. Like, oh, you can get like a shot glass, or with your favorite anime character if you want. Like, it's become such a big like piece of this marketing pie that you can just make so much money off of, and it
Yeah.
doesn't even matter what it is anymore. Like, people are just gonna buy it.
You
Think
know,
the last time I went to box lunch, I think I saw like a Goku like a waffle maker. Like, it was crazy.
yeah, but box lunch is another one of those that openly kind of admits that they're selling you that. They're pop culture selling you that nostalgia from before, and they know that, and we know that going into it. And
Yeah.
sometimes some of the stuff that we really liked as kids, and some of the anime that we really love, like I've never seen like a Hunter x Hunter shirt off of the internet
For them. Yeah.
anywhere else but box lunch.
I agree that there was a lot of stuff like growing up that maybe like Dragon Ball Z and Pokemon had a bunch of apparel, but certain things didn't. And Box Lunch does give you that. The one
Yeah.
problem I actually have with Box Lunch is that they have a lack of variety when it comes to certain things. I once looked at like a T-shirt. I was just like, oh, I want to get a Batman T-shirt. I love Batman, and they had the same picture of Batman on like a full T-shirt. It was probably like the size of a fucking quarter, and it was on like 15 different colors of T-shirts.
Yeah.
I was like, what? How is that variety? It's the same damn picture. I don't care if it's white or gray. Like, it's not gonna stand out anymore. I think like when you get like that lazy when it comes to apparel, and you still have like the insanity levels to charge somebody like $40 for a T-shirt, that's a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I've always been a fan of like, hey man, if you're gonna make a T-shirt or something, have it like take up some space. And I know this is probably like the worst fucking example of that, but it's still got something on the sleeves. It's still got something on the back here. Like, this, I don't like when somebody says, "Oh, here's a Dragon Ball T-shirt," and it has like Z right here, or a
Or
Dragon
like,
Ball, and that's it.
or like Goku's face and like all the Saiyans and then Dragon Ball Z. I This was one thing that
Yeah.
I'm always like frustrated with is like on T-shirts it's specifying it's literally it's the picture and then it's also
Mm,
Dragon Ball Z.
yeah.
For
Like, if
me
you know the
personally,
character.
exactly, like for me personally, if it like the most perfect shirt I've ever owned is the shirt you bought me, the Lord of the Rings shirt, the Gandalf in front of the
Oh.
Durin's door, right?
Uh,
Like that is the best shirt I've ever owned because there's no label on it whatsoever.
mm.
It's just the blue door and Gandalf standing in front of it. And anyone who's going to recognize that is going to be somebody who's seen the image or who knows the actual story, who knows Lord of the Rings. So that's what I like.
I see, and I love those types of shirts that you find like just random spots. Either it's like a convention or just a store, and you're just like, man, this is awesome. Like, I want this. I wanna own this.
Yeah,
And it's they're rare finds, but they're always really cool.
yeah. And I think that the whole reason why you see a lot of like the names on the shirts is because companies who are making the shirts they're to me it feels like you want to buy the shirt, but you want everyone to know what it is, and that's not
Exactly.
why I buy a shirt. I buy a shirt because
Uh,
like
I'm wearing this. This is for
exactly
me.
I'm wearing this, and if somebody's gonna recognize it, I want them to be an actual true fan because
Yeah.
otherwise, like if someone tells
Why
me,
would I buy something for somebody else? Like, why am I gonna
yeah,
like dress myself in apparel that's supposed to appeal to you? Like, if
exactly,
you have a question, ask me about it. Like, oh, that's cool. Where's that from? Oh, this is from a game. Blah blah blah. This is from the anime. This is from this movie. This is a band I enjoy. Something like that. Like,
and when someone sees
yeah,
it and they say, "Oh man, Dance Game of Dance, cool," and you're just like, "Oh, cool," so okay. I
yeah,
understand
like,
that your level of understanding on this is beyond that of somebody, normally, and I can actually
mm.
speak with you about this.
Yeah, like,
So,
why would my apparel ever come with an instruction manual?
yeah,
Like, that's yeah, like that's ridiculous to me.
it's a good way to put it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've never liked seeing like the titles of the shows. I say that right on this shirt. It has Cowboy Bebop at the bottom, but
Yeah.
I did get some for Christmas
If,
from my
if
mom.
it's not in
So
if it's not in English or if it's like a symbol of something, then fine. Like Yu Yu Hakusho is a perfect example. It never says Yu Yu Hakusho anywhere. It always has like the kanji for it. Just hey, spiritual ghost detective. Like we
yeah,
get it. Like if it's a logo. It's there's a line there.
yeah,
Yeah, no.
yeah.
I think like too many people with the whole like nostalgia and like marketing try and dress up as what like they expect will be a conversation starter, or just like hope everyone
Yeah.
recognizes my shirt here. Oh, my bad. Sorry. Oh, what? This? No. I don't even remember where I got this from. Clearance rack or something. Oh, I was thrifting. I went to a resale shop, just whatever. They said I needed, 5 items to make it, the sale. So I just, whatever you got there, it's fine by me. Like, come on, dude. Like, shit. It's nostalgia, the whole wave. It takes us back to our childhood in some ways, and then it's kind of like, oh, I want to introduce this to a younger generation. There's nothing inherently bad about it. I just think it's just the way that it's used, either through marketing or companies strategizing the ways that they think they're fooling you into buying this thing that you've seen a million times and saying that this is a new piece of entertainment that nobody's ever seen, which is a lie. And when I go see a live action remake and be like, hey, this is really cool, you should check it out, and somebody say, why? You can just go watch the original. It's the same damn thing.
Another part about it that I find weird is people getting the impression that they can't just own one thing. It has to be like everything. They have to have the cups, and they have to have
Yeah.
the wall posters, and they have to have the art, and like every single thing. Now, don't get me wrong, right? Like I know you're a huge Power Rangers fan. Like you
Yeah.
love Power Rangers, and you want to collect as much Power Rangers stuff as possible, and that's different because you love that much, right? It's so for you it's different. But whenever it's like I have,
I'm a huge Toku guy. Like, if anybody wants to talk about that in the comments, like, come at me. I love it. I love it to death. Love my Sentai. Love my Godzilla. Love my Kamen Rider. So that's my plug for my shit, right?
I'm more like fantasy
Continue.
based.
Yeah, he is, but it works. What are your crazy collections? You know what I mean?
What would mine be? Mine's probably just like cookware.
I mean, dude, no, some of that stuff is like really expensive though if you really enjoy cookware. I recently stopped because we don't have a draft house out here, but those Mondo glasses that I collected, so many of them. I think I had like 15 at one point. Like
Yeah.
every time a new movie was coming out, even if I didn't see the movie, I was just like, oh man, I'm not gonna watch the movie till next week. But the glasses would sell out so quickly
Oh.
that I had to buy those freaking those Mondo glasses. It's like the one that I missed out, the one that probably sucks the most at missing
The
out is
John
when
Wick.
John Wick. Yes, dude, that Continental shot glass, the little tequila,
Yeah.
had the little gold inlay on it. Oh man, that was so cool.
I was lying earlier. I can say that. I can say that, but I just remembered like how much my son actually owns, like when it comes to Pokemon,
Yeah.
and then remembering that I'm the one that bought all that.
Yeah.
So play Pokemon.
I've seen his Pokemon room. It's pretty crazy.
I think right now he's got like, I think right now he's got about 140 plush dolls of all different Pokemon. So, and they're all different, like 140 different ones.
Yeah.
So I
That's
mean,
crazy.
that's not really,
I think
it's not all of them obviously compared to
no,
how many
no.
there actually
How
are,
how
but
many there are, but that's still a lot, like comparatively.
that's the one thing. When it came to
Yeah.
Pokemon, my entire like, ever since I could play Pokemon, I have always played Pokemon. And when it comes to Pokemon, it's the only thing I'll never not enjoy. And I'll always like, I'm a sucker for the nostalgia when it comes to Pokemon. It's the one thing I can't control.
See and this is where I do differ from him because I actually stopped playing Pokemon like in high school. I think it was like Black 2, and I really didn't care for like the story, like the Pokemon like themselves as the starters. I didn't really care for, so I stopped playing those. I would see the games every now and then. I would see the cards, and I would always watch the animes whenever Ash actually got to his leagues because I always thought that was cool. But there'd be so many times where I'd ask him like, I don't know what this Pokemon is. What does it do? Like, is this something good? Like, is it bad? But I will say this, like with the Switch, I saw like how Sword and Shield looked, and it looked interesting, especially with that Arceus trailer that came out.
Oh
So
yeah.
maybe that's something that might get me back into playing the series. Other than that, like I still have love for the franchise. I thought it was cool.
I mean, some of the newer games aren't the greatest, and you know, some of the directions they went in obviously not the same as before. But I mean, they are what they are. They're just a different game, and that's why I like. I think we were talking about it earlier. That's why I like the older Pokemon games, and just that's why I think they retain value is because they're always it's always the same game. So if you wanted to play through like, Pokemon Silver, Pokemon Crystal,
Hmm.
you can go back and play through Pokemon Crystal, and you're getting, aside from graphics, you're getting almost an exact experience of what games are today when it comes to Pokemon. The only difference
Hmm.
there is going to be graphics, you know,
Yeah.
and maybe there's more moves you can potentially do in a newer game, but you're getting the same experience. It's not one of those games that hinged on graphics, so that's why I liked it. Like
Yeah.
Digimon World.
Definitely.
You remember Digimon Worlds?
Yeah. I love Digimon, dude. Like that's the thing. Like I will go 100% on Digimon. Like
Yeah. Like those games,
watching the oh,
they took a little bit
I'm
of a
sorry.
different route. Like,
Yeah.
and they did kind of rely on graphics a little bit, and so sometimes it's
Mhm.
hard to go back and play those games. I still have Digimon World 3, and I've
Yeah,
always wanted to
but
go
but
back and play it, but I never have.
no, they even remade the whole. Speaking of nostalgia, they remade the whole like the virtual pets, like the original Digimon, like with almost the little Tamagotchi thing, because they have them like in the wrist now. But it's still the little 8-bit monster you know and love. It's still pretty fucking
Yeah.
cool. I remember having those when I was a kid. Speaking of remakes, they did remake last year the original anime. So it's like Digimon
Hmm.
Adventure, but it's just called like 2020. And I've watched it. I've enjoyed it. I think there are actually like maybe 2 episodes left in there.
Yeah. And this
It
is coming from
literally
a. Sorry, go ahead.
it touches upon the almost the exact same story as the original in the beginning, and then it really does adapt its own version of the tale. But it's the same characters, they have the same partner Digimon and everything. And
Yeah.
I just thought it was so well done, like as a good companion piece for the original. Like you're like, hey, like here's the story you know and love, but like we are updating it for a newer audience, and I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. And this is coming from a Pokemon guy.
Yeah.
I personally think that the original series of Digimon was better than the original series of Pokemon. Um, don't get me wrong, I love them both, but like personally, I think that the original series of Digimon was really fantastic, and even going beyond
Pikachu can't beat a Greymon. I'm sorry. You got a Gigamax. Maybe a Gigamax Pikachu can beat a Greymon.
that.
Yeah, I they're actually starting a new series too in October. It's called like Digimon Ghost Stories. It's supposed to have like a more like horror
That's
sense
cool.
to the stories. That yeah, like it looks pretty cool. Like they already show like the main characters off, and it's got my attention.
Yeah, and it's just unfortunate, that COVID happened when it did because we got a lot of really cool things that could have potentially became so big, like the Digimon, you know,
Card game,
redo
yeah.
of the card
Oh my
game.
god, yeah.
It's too bad,
COVID
man.
sucked so bad. Yeah, like scalpers and limited supply just destroyed that. Here they are, I think like set 6 now, and it's just like it you can't try coming into the game this late now. Yeah,
But yeah,
should definitely. I guess maybe next week's video we'll talk about like what our plans for October are, and then we can like kind of like week 1, week 2, week 3, and week 4.
yeah, we're going to be doing all of our videos in October are going to be Halloween themed or horror themed.
Yeah.
Of course, our final, we're still deciding what we're going to do for our last week. Um, I think we're talking about like basically deep diving into one specific movie, and so yeah, we'll see. Um, but I'm Stella B. I appreciate you watching today. This is my friend Arrow for the win. You can find our information below in the comments for the video. And as always, if you want to reach out to us, please feel free to. Arrow.
Yeah, like you said, our information's there. We want to hear from you guys. What did you like? What did you not like? Do you have some things that you want to suggest for us to, talk about? Start the dialogue, man. Like, give us some feedback. What did you like? What did you not? What's your gray areas? Maybe you have those certain hobbies or topics that maybe like were nostalgia fueled for you, that kind of like, hey, now that I'm older I kind of got back into it, but I see that there's a younger crowd that's also into it. Or maybe just something that you're like, hey, how come this hasn't come back yet? Fads are a circle, man. You'd be surprised what comes back.
Yeah.
Always, thanks for listening, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week with some more stuff.
Yeah. If you think there's any particular movie you'd like for us to cover for Halloween or for October, sorry. Yeah, let us know if there is any topics you want us to cover as well. All right. Have a good day.